Okay. Yeah, so we are in part 4 of our Christmas hymn series. Today we are doing Hark the Herald Angels Sing, and we're going to be in Luke chapter 2, verses 8 to 20. All right, so we started in December, on December 1 with O Come, Emmanuel, and then we moved to What Child Is This? Last week we were in O come, all ye faithful, and today the last one is Hark the Herald Angels Sing. Okay, and so let's do a quick, brief history of the hymn like we've done with some of the other ones, and then we'll jump into, okay, what is the Bible reference that this hymn was kind of made from, and then we'll kind of go into some of the verses and see how it is speaking to us today. Okay, and so this hymn was originally a collection of hymns and poetry all the way from 1739. So it's really old, right? Its author was Charles Wesley. Does anyone know that name, Charles Wesley? Okay, all right. And then later adapted by George Whitefield. Anyone know that name? All right. So those are two founders of the Methodist denomination. So Hark the Herald Angels Sing is very much a Methodist Christmas hymn. Okay, and it was based on Luke chapter 2, verse 14. Here's the fun part. I find this stuff fun, right? The melody that we're familiar with, right, is actually not the original one. But the one we use today and we sing was adapted by William Hayman Cummings, who did it in 1855. And it's adapted from Felix Mendelssohn's music from the Gutenberg cantata, which is a celebration of the printing press, right? So in a sense, this Christmas hymn is kind of a parody, right? They took another song, took the music from it, and then rewrote it. So Wesley and Whitefield, they're like the original Weird Al. Does Weird Al's still around, but like, do young people even know who he is, Weird Al? No, some people do. The real young ones, they're like, who's Weird Al? Only like the greatest musician of all time? Look him up, right? He's hilarious. But anyways, so I think that's really neat, where the melody is actually from another song that was celebrating the printing press, and now we're using that melody to celebrate Jesus. Okay, so that's fun stuff. You can use that in your Christmas party conversations. That will make you the most popular person at that party. Okay, all thanks to me. All right, you're welcome. Okay, so let's take a look at the Bible reference. That's Luke chapter 2, verse 14 for Hark the Herald Angels Sing. But before we do that, let's get a little bit of vocab. Okay, hark. We don't really use that word anymore, but all that means is like, hey, listen. Okay, so if you want to bring that back, Gen Alpha. Bring that back, please, and just start using that word, hark, And then herald is just an official messenger. And so the title of the song, Hark the Herald Angels Sing, is basically, hey, listen to the official messenger angels. Right? We got these angels that are the messengers of Jesus, of God. Listen to them. Yeah, that's pretty much the title of the song. Okay, and so it's based on Luke chapter 2, verse 14, but let's get some context. That's why we're going to kind of expand it and look at Luke chapter 2 all the way from verse 8 to 20. Okay, so we're going to go through some of those verses, see what they say to us, and then we'll jump into the hymn. Okay, so verse 8, and there were shepherds living out in the fields nearby, keeping watch over their flocks at night. And so this section is about when the angels appear to the shepherds and kind of tell them that Jesus has come. All right, so one thing you got to know is that shepherding was a very low-level job in ancient Israel society, right? Unless you're the owner of the flock, that's great because you're the boss. But like typically shepherds who are working for another owner, this is a very low-level job. You became a shepherd because you really had a hard time getting any other job. People didn't want to be around you. And so they're like, oh, you need a job? Okay. Well, don't want you here in my presence, so why don't you go into the fields of the sheep, right? So a lot of people with criminal backgrounds people are like, yeah, I don't trust you. Be a shepherd, right? Or people are just odd and have a hard time being in society. Be a shepherd, right? So these are kind of like the outcasts of society. Okay, and then we go to, and so that's what we're looking at, right? We got these shepherds, and that's who they are. In verse 9 to 12, it says, "An angel of the Lord appeared to them, and the glory of the Lord shone around them. They were terrified, but the angel said to them, 'Do not be afraid. I bring you good news that will cause great joy for all the people. Today in the town of David, a Savior has been born to you. He is the Messiah, the Lord. This will be a sign to you. You will find a baby wrapped in cloths and lying in a manger.'" Okay. So I want you to pause for a moment and just remember, okay, so shepherds are like the outcasts of society. And the greatest event up until the resurrection, right? The greatest event in all of history, God chose to reveal it to the shepherds first. That just think about that. And of course, if you're thinking, well, technically, I think the Magi was related first because they probably started a while back. They just saw a star, right? They didn't know what it was. They just knew something was up with that, right? But like this actual direct, the Messiah has come. God chose to reveal it to shepherds, to the outcasts first. So just kind of like pause on that. Just kind of keep that in the back of your mind, which is an interesting fact. Okay, so now we're going to go to verse 13 and 14. "Suddenly, a great company of the heavenly hosts appeared with the angel, praising God and saying, 'Glory to God in the highest heaven, and on earth peace to those on whom his favor rests.'" I love this. Although Jesus was born into very humble circumstances, right? He's born in a manger, which is most likely in kind of the side of a cliff in the cave. Jesus is certainly not ordinary, and this event is certainly not ordinary. So in here, we see both like the humility of it all and the rightful majesty, right? And the reason why God does this, I just love it because he's coming in without any fanfare to like like a teen mom, right? Like this, he doesn't come in through royalty, and it isn't announced to like the rich and famous. He's announced through the outcast, and yet there's rightful majesty here. So still there's this like heavenly host, screaming and singing. I've always wondered. Okay, this is just me being weird. Did only the shepherds see this, or did everybody see? Because it's not like the sheep are like 20 miles outside. No, they're in the outskirts. But this is night, and I don't know, like if it was dark out, and then this magical like heavenly host started singing, I would think you would be able to see that from far away. Or is this like one of the things that only the shepherds saw and no one else saw it? I don't know. That's just me thinking about that. But the shepherds got to see that. But this whole scene of how the shepherds are the ones who saw it, it just shows that God's ways are so different from our ways. God shows here that he is for everyone. And you might think, well, yeah, but you want to know something? I don't think everybody believes that. I don't think everybody in this room believes that. Right? If you think God is for everyone, then everybody should be able to come in and worship. But there are a lot of people who do not feel comfortable in churches, in our church, in any church. There are people right here who I bet if we interviewed you, you are not feeling comfortable right now. That's not your fault. That's our fault. Well, that's the church's fault, right? Somehow we have made church not actually that accessible and comfortable for everyone. Right? And so this is a good reminder that how God does things is so different than how we typically do things. And so it should be a reminder for us. It's like, okay, how do we do church? How do we live out our faith so actually everyone is comfortable being here? Okay, so I think that's a really cool thing that's going on here. Okay, so then we get to verse 15 to 18. It says, "When the angels had left them and gone into heaven, the shepherds said to one another, "Let's go to Bethlehem and see this thing that has happened, which the Lord has told us about." So they hurried off and found Mary and Joseph and the baby who was lying in the manger. When they had seen him, they spread the word concerning what had been told them about this child. And all who heard it were amazed at what the shepherds said to them. Right? So 3 quick points here. 1, they acted without waiting. They heard, they were amazed, and they just went. I think a lot of times we kind of just pause and we don't have that like urgency. But I love that. They just acted out without waiting. Second thing is they spread the word, right? So actually like they told everybody, right? This is the most amazing thing. So they couldn't hold it in. They had to tell everyone. Right? God calls us to do the same. Now here's the last one, which I thought, I kind of sat back, thought it was cool, and then I thought it was kind of sad actually. All who heard it were amazed. Yeah, it makes sense, right? But then pause for a moment. They weren't amazed for long. If they were amazed and it stayed amazing for them, Jesus would have been known, right? By the time Jesus becomes an adult, people don't even know about him. He's like, started ministry all over again. So the shepherds saw it. The shepherds acted immediately. The shepherds spread the word. Everybody was like, wow. And then they just kind of moved on with their life. And after that, it's like, Jesus, I don't know. Think about it, right? You had this event that said, this baby is the Messiah. Within, I don't know how long, but within not very long, no one believed it, right? And everyone just kind of moved on with their life. I think that says something. That says something about just people. And then I think that's something we should take and look, not as, oh, that's them. No, that's us. I think we are the same way, where we get amazed by Jesus at a certain point in our life, and then it's so easy for us to kind of fall back into that, like, just kind of carry on my life, okay? And then so we get to the last 2 verses, verse 19 and 20. But Mary treasured up all these things and pondered them in her heart. The shepherds returned, glorifying and praising God for all the things they had heard and seen, which were just as they had been told. This is really interesting. So Mary, she has this baby, and stuff is happening, right? It's like these shepherds, like, whoa, what are you guys doing here, And they're celebrating that kind of stuff. So Mary didn't fully understand the significance of her role, even though she was visited by an angel, even though this was a virgin birth, right? It's like all that stuff. Mary still doesn't fully understand her role, and I think we are no different. I think a lot of us, even if we've been believers for a very long time, we wonder, what is my role on a grand, like God level, right? Because we look at our life and we think, okay, I live, I go to school or have a job, I have bosses and they have bosses, and all this kind of stuff. And we wonder, like, what is my role in all this? Am I just going to live, have a career, raise a family, hopefully they turn out okay, and then die, and then leave them, some of the money that I earned, and hopefully they don't squander it? Like, is that it? And then go to heaven, and God's like, yeah, good job, all right, you've got eternity, so, got the foosball table there, ping pong, you can go one-on-one in basketball with Apostle Paul, or something like that. I don't know, right? I think sometimes we sit there and wonder, what is my role, right? And I want to say, like, even Mary, at this moment, was still like, oh, okay, there's something significant here, right? So God has a significant role for you. Even if it doesn't, like, seem like it's there, right? And so you got to know your significance, right? And the way I think about it is, if you're a parent or whatever, right? Like, are you raising a child who's going to become like someone who loves Jesus, right? Are you someone who is going to become someone who loves Jesus? Do you love Jesus? Like, those are significant things, right? And it's not about you. It's about who you're serving, right? If God is the God of the universe, and then you are someone who is worshiping the Lord, right? You are worshiping you are worshiping the infinite God. That's significant. And so even though you may feel like you're like, oh, what am I doing? Right? It's your significance doesn't come from what you do, from what you are or who you are. It actually comes from God and how you worship God and what God says about you. Okay. So that's kind of like the context of Luke chapter 2, verse 14, and then we looked at 8 to 20. That's the context. Now let's take a look at Hark the Herald Angels Sing. Let's look at some of the verses and see what God is saying through that. Basically, we're going to look at the verses, and we're going to look at one the key line, and then we're going to go through it. Okay. So in verse 1 it says, "Hark the herald angels sing, glory to the newborn King. Peace on earth and mercy mild, God and sinners reconciled. Joyful all ye nations rise, join the triumph of the skies. With the angelic host proclaim, Christ is born in Bethlehem. Hark the herald angels sing, glory to the newborn King." And the key line here is God and sinners reconciled. That line, that sentence, God and sinners reconciled, that is everything. If you believe you need to be reconciled to God. Now, if you're sitting here and you're like, I'm just visiting. I actually don't know much about what's going on here. And you don't feel like you need to be reconciled to God, then God and sinner reconciled, it's like, oh, okay, sure, what's the big deal, right? But this is the heart of the gospel right here. All of it, all that you've heard, this is the heart of the gospel. This is the what, all right? So just God and sinners reconciled. That's the what we're talking about. That is the gospel. And verse 2 goes on, right? It says, "Christ by highest heaven adored, Christ the everlasting Lord. Late in time behold him come, offspring of a virgin's womb. Veiled in flesh and the Godhead see, hail the incarnate deity. Pleased as man with man to dwell, Jesus our Emmanuel. Hark the herald angels sing, glory to the newborn King." And the key lines here is veiled in flesh the Godhead see, and then hail the incarnate deity, right? This is the how, right? The what is, okay, God and sinner reconciled. That's what's happening. That is what's important, right? That is what the gospel is. How is God becoming human, right? God does the thing that only God can do, right? We as humans cannot become God, but God has chosen to become human in Jesus, right? And the reason why this is important is because this reconciliation, the what reconciliation, is something God does and we receive, right? That's really important because pretty much all of religion across the world, it's always about what we do to either please God or attain something. It's always about what we do, and here it's not about what we do, right? This what God and sinner reconciled is about what God has done and what we kind of receive. Okay, so that's important. And then so we get to verse 3. It says this, "Hail the heaven-born Prince of Peace. Hail the Son of Righteousness." I'm going to pause there real quick. Some people might think that's a typo, and it should be Son, S-O-N. Actually, no, it is Son, S-U-N, because it's referencing Malachi 4:2. Okay, just a fun fact. Because I know I would have saw that and been like, oh, typo, right? It's not a typo, okay? "Hail the Son of Righteousness. Light and life to all he brings. Risen with healing in his wings. Mild he lays his glory by, born that man no more may die, born to raise the sons of earth, born to give them second birth. Hark, the herald angels sing, glory to the newborn king. And so the key line here is born to give them second birth. This is the why. Okay, so we had the God and sinner reconciled. That's the what, right? The incarnate deity. That's the how, right? The what is the reconciliation. That is the heart of the gospel. The how is God becoming human, and the why is born to give them second birth. The why is that God wants us to have a new life, right? We live in a broken world, right? If you're, I think the whole thing is this. Some people, when they kind of look at the gospel message and they look at, they just struggle with the whole idea of like sin, and do I really need, what have I done, and that kind of stuff. One way to look at it, just zoom out, and look at what humanity has done. Humanity has done a lot of great things. We've made a lot of cool innovations, that kind of stuff, right? But humanity, man, we just break things. It's like our nature. We love to dominate. Even in our great accomplishments, a lot of that is often at the cost of people. Right? That's human. That's our sinful nature. And so, and that's not something we can change. That's what we do. Right? And I know there's actually a lot of science fiction stories where that's kind of how it is. It's that's how humanity is, and then sometimes they bring in the some kind of outside force, whether it's some super AI or some aliens are the only way to fix this is just wipe out humanity, and then the whole storyline is just we got to fight against the machines, we've got to fight against this, and then you find out oh wow, those machines and those aliens have a kind of a point there, and then it's at the end, right? That's a lot of science fiction is like that, if you know what I'm talking about. I like that kind of stuff. So, but anyways, right? And so that's humans. That's what we do. And so the why does God do any of this? Is because God sees that. God sees the brokenness in this world. He sees how humans, they try to make things better, then they just mess up even more. And a lot of them don't try. They just want to mess things up, right? And God is there's not the solution is not going to be, let me give people knowledge. That'll fix it. We have tons of knowledge. That's not working. Maybe let's give them a tool, like technology or something. Let's give them time. No, none of that stuff works, right? Because our nature is sinful, and our nature breaks stuff. And so the why is God says, okay, they need a new life. You probably, if you have been in this church for even not that long, you've heard me say this, but I'll say it again because it's so important, okay? Jesus did not come to make us better. Jesus did not come to make us better people. If you just want to be a better person, you can read books about that. You can watch YouTube videos about that. There's actually a lot of great advice out there of hey, if you put these habits in your life, you probably will become a better person. Wake up earlier, drink more water, drink electrolytes because, the government recommended sodium levels is actually not optimum for brain function or something like that, right? You can do that kind of stuff, right? But that's, you don't need God to kind of be better. But you do need God to be alive. When I mean alive, I mean spiritually alive, because spiritually, we as humanity, we are dead. Because that was our nature. That's the whole, the gospel message is that there is sin. We have chosen to kind of live in our own way, and that just doesn't lead to life. And so Jesus came so we can have spiritual life, right? We are not bad people who go to church and are good people. A lot of times, there are bad people who go to church and are still jerks. It just happens, right? But we are spiritually dead people who come to a saving faith in Jesus and then we are spiritually alive. Now, sure, God at that point will say, I'm now also going to transform you so you will, live better. But that's not the primary goal. The primary goal is to take us from being spiritually dead to being spiritually alive. And then that's this whole thing. That's like the gospel message. So in this hymn is like all of the entire gospel message there. And so for us today is we hear this. And if you're somebody who has walked with the Lord, you can say, glory to the newborn King, right? Glory to the newborn King because he reconciles us with God. Glory to the newborn King because he gave up everything to do this. He gave up heaven to come and be human to do this. And glory to the newborn King because he gives us new life. If this makes sense to you, if you resonate and celebrate this because, you're a believer and you've kind of done this for a while, then when we get to our worship time, sing it out, right? That's what we're here for, is to worship. Sing out, glory to the newborn King. Now, if this doesn't make sense to you, right? If you're still exploring this, if your parents just brought you here, or you're on break, you're visiting your parents, you're like, come on, you got to go to church, right? If this doesn't make sense to you or it doesn't resonate with you, right? Know that this is what the Christian message, this is what the gospel is really about. Because the sad truth is, a lot of people hear a different message. A lot of people, like when they think about Christians and church and all that kind of stuff, this is not the message they are hearing. And now, here's the other thing, right? That's not your fault. That's our fault again. Just like somebody coming into church doesn't feel comfortable, it's not your fault you feel uncomfortable. That's our fault. Like, we haven't done our job, right? If you're here and this is like, oh, this is a weird message. I did not know this is what God is about and Christianity is about. Yeah, know it, because that is not what a lot of people think. And that's our fault. That's our fault as pastors and the church, right? That's not kind of living out the gospel. We live out something different, and so that's why people look at the church and think differently, right? And so if this is new to you and you're like, oh, I didn't hear this before, I hope and pray that God will make your heart sensitive to the real message of Christ. And I hope you'll explore that and come to a faith that so many of us here have, a faith that has transformed us and given us new life. Let's pray.